Welcome back, guys, to another video in MLB The Show 19, and it has been a while. It really has been a while. I apologize for that. Things just got a little hectic for me over the past few months, and things kept popping up, and I just wasn't able to get back to this and kind of stick to it on a regular basis like I'd want to, as soon as I wanted to. So I do apologize for that, but we're going to be getting back into this. I'm really excited to. And really looking forward to making more videos, and a lot more frequently than obviously I have been. But for this one, we're going to be doing something a little bit different than we've been doing. I guess it's kind of a challenge video, but I'm not going to call it one. I've been watching some other channels on YouTube do these recently, and they just looked like a lot of fun. So what we're going to be doing is again, it's probably a challenge, but I'm not going to call it a challenge, but it's kind of in the name. We're going to be doing the Moneyball challenge. Now, what I've seen is a lot of people doing the Oakland A's, which is obviously, it should be the Oakland A's, because that is what Moneyball is all about. So what we're going to be doing this time around is going with the Tampa Bay Rays. Just because they're another team that has a very low budget. They really do tend to keep that budget as low as possible, but they tend to, over the past decade, they've really been in it a lot more than you would expect them to be. So I thought it'd be a good alternative to the Oakland A's to be doing for this. So that's what we're going to be doing. So Tampa Bay Rays, here we go. Moneyball. GM contracts off. Everything is good the way it is. Make sure these are off. Yes. Okay. Just making sure. So we're going to have manual for general manager tasks as well as coaching tasks. Player development tasks are going to be on auto just because I like to save time with the scouting, and I'm not very good at it. I don't know. To me, it's just not fun. But I will be doing the drafts manually. And I always go into spring training first just to kind of take a look at the roster, so that, usually they'll automatically set the 25-man roster, but it might not always be the way that I want it to be. And I'm actually not sure if they send a guy down and it uses up an option. I'm not sure if that happens initially, if they automatically do it. But that's kind of the main reason why I don't jump right into the regular season, just so that we don't waste any options on guys, and we have to recall them. I should really check to see if that happens. I feel like it would, but I don't know. Anyway, let's jump into the roster and just take a quick look. For the starting pitchers, we got Blake Snell, Charlie Morton. He's a guy that we're probably going to be trading right off the bat because of his $15 million salary. Good pitcher, though. Very good pitcher. We got Tyler Glasnow, Yanni Chirinos, Yarbrough, Faria. So a decent amount of starters here that are either on their way up or already in the majors, and a lot of them are cheap, so that really does help us out quite a bit. Now, I don't think starting pitcher is necessarily an area of need, but again, this is going to be a little bit different than the regular rebuilds or franchises, and we're going to be making a lot of moves, so we're not going to necessarily be waiting on guys either if we plan to compete, and that is what we plan to do. So moving on to the relievers, we got Castillo, who's a really good one. The closers, we got Alvarado, who's very, very solid closer there. Chaz Rowe looks decent. Stanek, I'm pretty big. I know the channel K Nasty is very big on walks per nine, and I have to agree with him because I've kind of followed his advice with that, and it does usually ring true or hold true. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I do really pay attention to the walks per nine, so that's a big thing that I'm going to be looking for pitchers. So someone like Kolarek, I know his hits per nine isn't that good, so we'll try him. Again, this really has to do with the salary more than anything, and trying to get decent players for a low salary. But again, like I was saying, for the pitchers, walks per nine is pretty big. And I'm really going to be paying attention to that. Hits per nine is also huge, but I'll kind of make an exception if it's kind of like mid-range, like for Kolarek. It's a little on the low end, but again, because he has that high walks per nine, I'm a little more comfortable with him. So again, relievers, it kind of drops off. I do notice that because I've played as the Rays a few times, you know, as long as I've been playing this, in more recent memory, of course, but, you know, it does tend to drop off here a little bit. Only 2 relievers in the 80s, only 1 above 75. The rest go into the low 70s, and then they drop off into the 60s and 50s. So that might be an area that in some trades we might want to address. But moving on to the offensive side of things, we got Zunino, who is probably going to be someone that we move as well with that $4.5 million contract. Darno is probably going to stay as our backup. We got Perez, of course, who can also back up pretty nicely. First base is a little bit weak. Choi does have some power versus righties. Sometimes he works out as a platoon bat versus righties, but again, we're probably going to be looking to upgrade at first base. We got Nate Lowe kind of waiting in the wings a little bit. He's actually on a pretty friendly contract, so I don't think right here, 5 years for 1.6 a year, I think. Yeah, so we don't really need to move on from him, so hopefully he can develop for us, unless of course we need him in a trade. Second base, we got Lowe, Robertson, Wendell, all capable guys to play at the major league level. Most of them are on pretty friendly contracts. I think Lowe is also, yeah, his gets a little expensive, you know, 2 or 3 years down the road, but for right now we should be able to keep him. We got Yandy Diaz at third, Matt Duffy. Christian Arroyo could potentially, depending on how much, you know, how much he's valued, could really come in handy in a trade, because he really does not develop very much, in my opinion, from what I've played. Moving on to shortstop, we got Adames, who I'm hoping can develop. I'm not really sure about his tendencies in the game, though. Velasquez is there as well. And then we got Tommy Pham, Garcia, Kiermaier, Austin Meadows in the outfield. But again, kind of like the relief pitching, it kind of drops off quite a bit in the outfield, and it's not a very... we don't really have too many guys overall in the organization there. So that's the roster. I know I didn't really explain it too much, but you know, we definitely need to kind of address maybe starting pitching just based off of some guys that we need to trade, like Morton, maybe Snell. I'm going to try to hold on to him just to, like I said, address their spots in the rotation. I think relief pitching is an area of need for us. We're going to have to replace Zunino for sure. We need to address first base. I think second base we're good. Third base we should be okay. Shortstop, if we can find a shortstop, then maybe we bring him in. You know, depending again on how Adames performs. So maybe that might be a mid-season trade, excuse me. And then in the outfield, we probably need like 4th, 5th outfielder types, unless we do move. We might move on from some of these guys in Pham, Garcia. Definitely Kiermaier, I think, is he's a little more expensive, so definitely move on from Kiermaier. That really leaves us with 3 outfielders, so we do need some 4th and 5th outfielders there. Even more if we do end up trading someone like Pham. So I'm going to look into the trade market, see what we can do, and I will meet you guys there, and we'll go over each trade as we make it. So I'll see you guys there in just a second. Alright, so the first trade that we're going to be making is with the Seattle Mariners. And before I get into anything, I just want to say this roster is a bit old. It's before Encarnacion was traded to the Yankees. I think it's from the beginning of June, just because I couldn't find a roster that I was kind of satisfied with that was any more recent than this one. I think I had it saved from June 7th. I'm not really sure. It's from after the draft, I believe. So this is the roster that we're going to be using. It isn't quite updated fully, but it isn't too far off. So once I find a better roster, I will definitely be using that. But back to the trade, we're going to be trading with the Mariners for Omar Narvaez in exchange for Mike Zunino, kind of swapping catchers there for a cheaper catcher. Now Narvaez is a very solid catcher usually in franchise. Good contact, good vision and discipline at the plate. The real issue here with him is that his fielding is way worse than Zunino. So I'm a little concerned about that, but he was the the guy that I wanted more than any other catcher that I saw that, you know, we'd be able to get for a cheaper price. So we're going to be going with this. We're also adding in Christian Arroyo and getting Marco Gonzalez to kind of fit into the starting rotation for when we do trade Charlie Morton. I actually had a trade set up for him with the Yankees, and then I was pressing it to go through, and I realized, oh, budgetary constraints are an issue. So it's going to be a little tough to trade him with his $15 million, that's a big difference, $15 million salary. But we'll see what we can find. So this is the first trade, and I'll meet you guys back at this screen once we find another one. Alright guys, so as you can see, we're on a different screen. Just thought this might be a little bit quicker to go through. And it shows all the trades that I just made. Again, thought this might be a little bit quicker just to save some time, and we can still see, you know, all the trades that we made. Never really thought to do this before, but I feel like it might be a good idea. Anyway, so we started off with that first trade, Narvaez and Gonzalez from the Mariners for Mike Zunino and Christian Arroyo, mostly just to swap out the catchers and to get another starting pitcher for when we did trade away Charlie Morton. We then released a catcher, Anthony Bemboom, who was on a 2-year deal in the minors, deep potential, like 65 or 66 overall, I think. I wasn't going to use him, but he was making like $600K a year. So I just released him just to save a little bit of money. The next trade that we made was with the Orioles. We acquired Dwight Smith Jr. and Joey Rickard, both guys that can be number 4 or 5 outfielders. Also depth pieces if we already have 5 and we need to bring someone up, or we have, you know, whatever we have, maybe an infielder plays the outfield. Either way, they could be a depth piece, or they are good enough to be that backup outfielder. So we got them from the Orioles for a catching prospect who was a good amount, what's the right word? A good distance away from making the major leagues, along with Ryan Merritt, who had I think like a $500,000 or $600,000 contract, who wasn't going to make the majors for us, and Luis Santos, who again had a $500K contract, who was a little bit further away from the majors. The next trade that we made was acquiring AJ Minter from the Braves along with Luke Jackson to address the bullpen issue for us, where I wanted to improve upon the relievers, and Johan Camargo, who's actually a third baseman. I think they do mess up some of the positions on this screen sometimes. So we did get those 3 players from the Braves for Matt Duffy, Shane Baz, and Tobias Myers. Now, Tobias Myers, I think, was a C potential. It kind of just helped to get the deal to go through. I'm not sure, actually, if he had a large contract. Large as in $500K for a minor leaguer who's not going to play at the majors. Then we traded Shane Baz, who I do think has an A potential in this, to help make the deal go through. And Matt Duffy, who had a almost $3 million contract. He did have good contact versus right and left, but I think he was, what was he, a 70 overall, and I just felt like Camargo, you know, he's cheaper, he's got a few more years of, you know, team control, so his contract is not going to be very expensive, and he's a very solid player who can play a lot of different positions, I think, if I'm remembering correctly here. I've got a lot of players on my mind right now. So that was the deal that we made with the Braves. Now, those 2 deals were really, they weren't saving a lot of money at the time. They were kind of just making moves to fill out the roster as a whole, also in addition to filling in the spots for when we trade Kiermaier and when we traded Charlie Morton. So moving on from there, I still felt we needed a decent bullpen arm, some starting help, and definitely a first baseman. So we acquired all of those things in the next trade with the Yankees for Kevin Kiermaier, Greg Jones, and Aaron Sledgers. Now, Greg Jones, I do believe, was an A or B potential, so he helped the trade go through. Aaron Sledgers was another minor league pitcher who had a bit of a high contract for where he was in the organization. And Kevin Kiermaier, of course, had that $7 million contract. We did receive Domingo Germán, who is a starter. Decent attributes. I think he does, develop nicely in franchise. Chad Green, who has very nice attributes, should be a very good addition in that bullpen. And Luke Voigt, just to help that first base position, and he's pretty much going to be our first baseman. Now, the trade I had in mind with the Yankees previously that I mentioned was for those three players, for Kevin Kiermaier and Charlie Morton. So we wouldn't have put in Aaron Sledgers, and we wouldn't have had to trade a prospect in Greg Jones. But this one did go through, so I'm glad that that worked out. The next trade that we did make was for Charlie Morton. Going to the Padres, we acquired Ian Kinsler and Robbie Erlin. I was actually pretty happy with this in receiving Robbie Erlin because his walks per nine are ridiculous, and sometimes he really turns out to be a guy that you can really rely on in these franchises that you weren't expecting. And Kinsler was just in the deal because that's what worked for the Padres. And we did end up flipping him. So the next trade, we got Akil Baddoo from the Twins for Ian Kinsler. Now, I wasn't sure about getting Akil Baddoo, and I accidentally pressed for the trade to go through a little bit quicker than I wanted to. But since we were a little bit low on outfield depth, I thought, you know what, that was the best move to make there from a couple of the other guys I was looking at. And then the last trade that we made was for some pitchers in the athletic system. Hogan Harris, Joel Seddon, and Kyle Friedrichs, who are all making under 100K, and they really aren't anything special. A couple of them did have pretty good walks per nine, but I think they're all like in the 50s. Maybe one of them is around 60 overall, so they're not really anything that we're going to use at the major league level, but it really was just to clear up a little bit more of the budget. Just make a little bit more room there, get it down to where we wanted to get it, and we did move on from Andrew Kittredge, Hobie Milner, and Ryan Sheriff. So with all of that being said, our budget now stands at exactly $50 million. I was planning on doing $40 million, but prices have gone up quite a bit since, or not prices, contracts. The amount that you're paying players has gone up a little bit since, you know, what we're talking about here with the Moneyball and the athletic system with Billy Beane. So, you know, having a lower salary, I'm not really actually sure of the numbers exactly that they worked with, so I can't say, you know, it was like 25 million or anything specific. I'm actually not sure about that. If you know, feel free to let me know. That'd be helpful to find out, or I could probably just look it up. But either way, you know, contracts and the amount that players are being paid has gone up since then, and you know, I feel like in order to make the team still have potential to be good and make the playoffs, it can't be too low, or I feel like that would be super low or super hard to do. So we're going to stick with 50 million. I know I didn't say it until now, but if I remember, I did put a little notification about the budget that we're sticking to earlier in the video, probably in the top of the video. So yeah, so this should be good. We're going to move on and fix up the roster a little bit, and then we're just going to head right into the regular season. I'll meet you guys maybe at the trade deadline just to see how everybody's doing, and then we'll kind of meet up at the end of the year to see what we're going to be doing, see if we made the playoffs, see how the team did, and, you know, all that stuff. So I'll meet you guys back at some screen around the middle of the year in just a second. Alright guys, so I apologize, I'm a little bit all over the place. Like I said, it's been a little bit of time since I have been recording videos, but we are going to stop at the draft really quickly. I'll kind of go through it and then show you the end results and go over the picks that we got, just to speed it up a little bit. But two things I forgot to mention already. One is the injuries are off in this just because it would make it super hard, I feel like. So yeah, usually I'm someone who prefers the injuries to be on, just to make it a little more realistic. But in this one, I am going to have to say I want to keep them off just because, like I said, it would make it, I feel like, very hard since it's already a challenging thing to do already, keeping the budget so low. So yeah, injuries are going to be off. And the second thing, I honestly don't remember what that was. If I think of it, I'll let you guys know. But for right now, we're going to hop into the draft, and I will meet you guys at the end to go over the players that we've drafted. All right, so this is the results. These are the results of our first year draft here. Not a bad draft. Couple of mid to high 80s, and then a 90 for our first pick. So I think we did pretty good, and the other two were mid 70s. So not too bad. So our first pick is Rick Cutliff. He's 18, closing pitcher potential is 91. He's a lefty. He looks pretty good. He's already a 72. Like I said, he's only 18. Very good pick. It was between him and two other closers, so I think we did get the right guy. Second round pick, we went with Tommy Rowe. Him, Matsumoto, Gomez, and there was another starter, Garcia, who I want to check. I think he went in the second round. It was between them, but I ended up getting these three because Matsumoto, I was very unsure about him. His overall is trending down, so we'll have to see how he does. But so far, he looks like he is probably going to be just fine. He's going to be a good major leaguer. He's got good fielding, good vision. His clutch is up there pretty good for a guy being drafted. Contact, speed. He looks like an all-around good player, and that's kind of what they had him as, but he was an 80 out of 80, I think, and sometimes that can be deceiving. So I kind of waited. I picked Rowe first, who looks like the best choice there. Gomez was second with the other pitcher, and then it was Matsumoto, who hadn't been taken, probably for that reason. So I did pick him up and take a chance on him, and it looked like it may have worked out. So we're gonna sign Rowe here. He's 20. He's 20, first baseman, 89 potential. He's only a 56, so he does have some time before he hits the majors. He's got some developing to do, but he's a solid fielder already. You can see, aside from power, he's kind of in the middle of the pack right now with everything else offensively. So that is obviously going to improve as he develops, and he could be a very nice major league piece down the road, but we may end up looking to use him in a trade. Ray Gomez, 85 potential. He's 18. He's a starting pitcher. He's already a 69, so not too far away. Walks per 9 are pretty solid. Stamina needs to go up a little bit, but not too bad. Hits per 9 is there. Home runs. His per 9s are pretty good for being drafted. Fielding is horrible. I'm actually not too sure how much fielding plays into a pitcher's game in this. I feel like I'm always getting pitchers with super low fielding, but then sometimes they end up getting a gold glove, so I'm not really sure. I'm assuming it does play a part. I don't think it's meaningless, but I don't know. So Ray Gomez was our third pick. We got Matsumoto, of course, 20 years old, shortstop, 84 potential. He's already a 74, so again, looks like an all-around good player, like I said before, so excited about him. We got Jonas Nunez, a right fielder who's 21, 76. This was, he's a while from being in the major leagues, but he looks more to be a speedster with a good arm. Fielding needs some work, and offensively he's not really the best, but we'll see how he develops. Probably, if anything, he's going to be a minor leaguer for us in this, because I don't know how much value he's going to have in a trade. Then we have Clinton Wilkes, who's a starting pitcher, 1984 overall. He's a 62, so he's a little bit away from the majors. Not a bad pick. He's only 19. He's got time to develop. Stamina's there. Walks per 9 is in the high 50s, so not too bad, but he does need to improve a little bit. And then we got Bobby Overmeyer, center fielder, 18 years old, 73 potential, so not really expecting too much out of him. He's got a ton of speed, and that's really the main part of his game right now. But he's got to develop, of course. Now I just want to see if I can find, I think it was the second round, Garcia, starting pitcher Garcia. If you see him, scream at your screen. I won't hear you, but it will definitely be helpful. Here he is. I think this is him. So he's an 85. What was the other guy? An 84? 85 too. Okay, so they were both 85. So we didn't really necessarily miss out on anything. He was a year older. Yeah, he doesn't look too bad either. His walks per 9, I think, are a little bit lower. Yeah, and that's kind of why That's kind of why I didn't take him. But, you know, not a bad player, looks like, for that guy either. So, you know, if we see him in some of the stats, like moving leaderboards, I should say, moving forwards in a year or 2 or 3, we'd be like, oh, hey, we could have drafted him. Maybe we'll end up getting him. I don't know. But not a bad draft. Pretty good. Pretty happy with it. And I'll meet you guys at around the trade deadline, I think, before the trade deadline, just to see how the team is doing and see what we're going to be planning for the trade deadline. As I speak, it is less than a day from the actual trade deadline, so pretty interested, especially being a Mets fan, what's going to happen there. But that's a whole nother topic. Off to the virtual trade deadline. All right, guys, so we're at the trade deadline. And there was nobody in the home run derby, just so you know. We are 9 games over 500 at 59-50 on the year. We're 3rd in the division to the Yankees and Red Sox. But we are only 2.5 games out of the wild card, so we're in it for sure. So we're probably going to be looking, if we can, to add 1 or 2 pieces, depending on if we can find anyone that's going to keep our budget under 50, because that is the whole point of this one. So if we can, we'll get it done. If not, we're going to have to try to go with what we have, who have played fairly well. Definitely have played fairly well. Like I said, we're still in it. This team is still in it. So even if we don't, look to make any additions, there's no reason to think that they're necessarily not going to make the playoffs. It is going to be harder, but we'll see how things go. But before we look to make any trades, what I do want to do, if I can find the right screen here, is see if anybody made the All-Star team for us. So, just because it's cool to see sometimes, at least for me, so maybe other people think the same thing. We'll see who made the All-Star team in general. We got Kershaw, Ryu, Strasburg, DeGrom, and Eichhoff in the NL. Matt Grace was the only reliever, and then closers Doolittle, Hicks, Davis, Hader, Iglesias, and Smith. Catchers, we got Real Muto, Flowers, and Grandal. First base is Bell, Rizzo, and Belt. Second base is Hernandez and Wilmer Flores. Yes. 21 homers, nice. Third base, we got Machado, Arenado, and Brian Anderson. Seager and Peraza at short. In the outfield, Ozuna is in left. Nimmo is in center. And Jose Martinez, Bellinger, Yelich, Harper, and Conforto are in right field. So for the AL, we got Porcello, Tanaka, Sale, Kluber, and Leak. Reliever is Wiley or Willie? Willie or Wiley? I'm not sure. Peralta from the Kansas City Royals. Closers are Blake Parker, Roberto Ozuna, Chapman, Hand, Givens, and Giles. I kind of went through that with my head somewhere else, so I'm just going to see if we have anyone. I don't think so, though. No. Okay. Catchers, Narvaez, 268, 17 homers. Wow. I was not expecting that type of power. His average is kind of low for what I was expecting. Thinking more around at least 280s to 290s, but he's making up for it with some power. 17 homers. So we got Falefa, Narvaez, and Jansen. First base, we got Abreu and Olsen. Second base, Altuve and VR. Third base, Ramirez, Bregman, Listella, and Lugo, Lindor, and Mondesi at short. JD, Chris Davis, and Benintendi in left. Trout and Hicks in center. And then Betts and Austin Meadows made it for us. Having a really nice year, hitting .304, 24 homers. Pretty excited to have him on the team, although once he hits arbitration, he's probably going to get a little expensive. So that's unfortunate. But for right now, I'm very happy to have him on the team. Really quickly, because Narvaez is showing that much power, I'm curious to see what Zunino's doing, who we actually traded back to. Wow! Okay. Zunino has less homers than Narvaez. I don't know what's going on in the world. And we did trade him back to Seattle. It didn't occur to me when we did that. Yeah, so Narvaez. Kind of exceeding expectations right now. Exceeding Zunino in Zunino's the main part of his game. Yeah, alright, so doing pretty good there. I'm going to see if we can make any trades before the deadline. Again, it would probably at most only be 1 or 2, depending on what we can find. But again, I'll let you guys know. I'll meet you guys at either one of those trade screens, and I will go over it if there's anything. Otherwise, I'll see you guys at the end of the year, and hopefully this team makes the playoff. All right, so we made one trade with the Athletics. We also made two moves. We recalled Joey Rickard from AAA and sent Dwight Smith Jr. down to AAA. Just because Rickard was performing a little bit down there, and Smith, he wasn't doing terrible, but he wasn't, I don't know. I thought Rickard might do a little bit better, so we'll kind of see. If he struggles, I'll always send him down and recall Dwight Smith Jr. We also brought up Ryan Yarbrough, who was absolutely tearing up AAA. We put him in the bullpen as the long man, moved Robbie Erlin, who is also performing well. We'll go over everyone's stats at the end of the year. Robbie Erlin, I think, has a 2.8 ERA. We moved him to the middle relief, and we sent down Chaz Rowe, whose ERA was over 5. The trade that we made, I'm like channeling my inner Mets, maybe? I'm not really sure, because I'm not really sure what they're doing. But with, like, they just traded for Marcus Stroman, they're kind of, even though it's going to be super hard if they try to, and very unlikely, they seem like they're, of course, if they don't make any other trades that would take away from this, but they seem like they're going for it this year as well as preparing for next year. That's kind of what we're looking at because of team control and guys that we might have to move on from. We may have to trade Blake Snell because of that high salary. So if we do, we got 2 starters back, Frankie Montas and Paul Blackburn. 2 guys that are definitely, Blackburn's a little bit lower in overall, but his walks per 9 are really good. So usually he does perform pretty well. Frankie Montas is in the low 80s, but they're both trending up. They're only 25 and 26 years old. Montas has another year of control before arbitration. Blackburn has 2. And then we have Trevino to put in the bullpen, who's having a really good year, still has 2 years of control before arbitration. So he's definitely going to help out this year. We did move on from Chad Green and Jake Faria, and Vidal Brujan? I'm not really sure how to say that. Anyway, he is a prospect. He's a potential. He's probably going to be good in a few years, but again, since we're trying to go for it every year, he's not really going to play a part for us right now. So we are using him to make this trade go through. Jake Faria, I'm not really big on him, at least not in franchise. I don't know. For me, more often than not, he doesn't do very well. When he does do well, it's like 1, maybe 2 years here and there. Maybe other people have different experiences with him, but for me, that is how it kind of goes with him. So I want to move on from him, get into other starters who are around the same age, same controllability pretty much, but are, they usually have better outcomes, or they might have better outcomes than what we can expect usually from Faria. Chad Green he's going to be a free agent after this year, I think, unless he's going to be arbitration eligible, I forget, but I think he's going to be a free agent. Either way, his deal is up at the end of the year, and it's going to increase, and he's not really performing too well so far this year. His ERA was over 4, and he is trending down just a little bit, and I know I said he was a good piece to have in the bullpen, and he is, but sometimes he does tend to trend down, which is unfortunately what happened this time. So we moved on from him, got a couple nice pieces back. I'm spending way too long on this one trade. So yeah, moving on from here, I'm just going to go in and fix the lineups and the rotation, kind of figure out who's going to be sent down, because we brought in 3 players for, I think, maybe 1 spot, and we'll kind of go from there. I'll meet you guys at the end of the year, see how everyone did, go over everyone's stats, and hopefully we made the playoffs, but we'll see once we get there. Alright guys, so we did make the postseason. We finished as the 2nd wildcard team, which is going to be tough this one. We're facing the Yankees in the wildcard game. That's going to be very tough. We finished the year at 88 and 74. So we did pretty good, I think, for having our budget have to stay under 50 million. Or at 50 million is what I meant to say. So again, as you can see, Snell's contract is going to be shooting up. Not a lot, but it's still super expensive. And it's shooting up enough for our team that has to stay at or below 50 million. So, we'll have to We'll have to really consider strongly what we're going to do there, but most likely we're probably going to have to move on from him. But yeah, let's go over and see what everybody did. No awards, apparently. But we'll kind of go through it and see. Bryant got MVP. Kershaw got Cy Young. Votto got the batting title. Doolittle got reliever of the year. Genesis Cabrera got rookie of the year. Wow, he did pretty good. Bryant got the Hank Aaron. Then Gold Gloves, as you can see in the National League. And then Silver Sluggers. Who's that? Scherzer. Nice. Silver Sluggers in the National League, of course. And then in the AL, JD got the MVP. Chris Sale got the Cy Young. Betts got the batting title. All Red Sox. Very nice for the Red Sox. Parker got the reliever of the year. Vlad Guerrero Jr., of course, gets the rookie of the year. So good. So good. Did you see? Of course you saw him in that home run derby. I'm proud to say Alonso beat him. But, my God, he was the one who put on the show, I think. And it's going to be fun to watch him for the next, 2 decades. Then Mike Trout got the Hank Aaron Award. Porcello got the Gold Glove. And we'll go through the Gold Gloves here. Gary Sanchez, Chris Davis. Chris Davis! What did you... He hit 30 homers. He hit over 200. Celebrate. Oh, my God. He did good. He did good. David Fletcher, Matt Chapman, Francisco Lindor, Rosario, Bradley Jr., Betts, Martinez got the Silver Slugger for the DH. Narvaez got the Silver Slugger. Awesome. He 1 away from 30 home runs. I never would have guessed that. Never. And he hit 286, kind of where you can expect him. I would say anywhere over 280 is kind of like the norm for what he does batting average-wise in these franchises, at least for the next few years. So really happy with that pickup. Abreu got the Silver Slugger. Odor, Ramirez, Lindor, Trout, 55 homers. Very nice. Betts and Meadows. And before we get into... Well, actually, Meadows won the Silver Slugger as well. They're not telling us the awards that our team has gotten. But we got 2 Silver Sluggers there for actually our 2 All-Stars. So that's pretty cool. And then what I was going to say, Betts hit 363. I didn't see that before, but wow. That's really good. Anybody in the league leaders? I don't think so. I'm not going to go through that. But the roster, let's really quickly just see how everyone did. Blake Snell, a 3.64 ERA, 17 wins, whip, not too bad, 1.3, 236 strikeouts. So we had a decent year. Montes, who we acquired, we put him in the rotation. We actually had to put Glasnow out. They didn't put him in the rotation, or was he just in the postseason? I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess it was the postseason. Okay. Blackburn, who we also got, is in the minor leagues right now. But Glasnow had an ERA, as you can see, of, well, it was like 5.96 before we sent him down. But it went up. So doing really bad there. So yeah, I felt like putting him in the bullpen wouldn't necessarily do very much, because he probably wouldn't be happy being out of the rotation in the first place, and then he would just do even worse for the Major League club. So probably not a good idea. So we sent him down to the minors, put Montes in his place, who was pretty much rated the same as him at that point. But his ERA was like, I think 4.3, which isn't the best, but he stuck around that, and it's a whole lot better than 6. Gonzalez did a lot better in the second half. His ERA was like almost, I think it was around 4.3 too. 3.45, 17 wins, almost 200 strikeouts. Herman struggled. Over 5 was his ERA. He got over 200 strikeouts, which is pretty nice. Definitely want to see him improve moving forward. Chirino struggled a little bit more in the second half, but not a terrible year for him. His whip was a little bit high, especially with his walks per 9 being up there as well. Yarbrough, very good for him. He came up when, actually I mentioned it earlier, we made the move, we brought him up, sent Rowe down in the bullpen, and he was kind of our long man, and he really performed there very well. Castillo, 3.65 ERA, so not too bad. Trevino continued his dominance this season, a 1.61 ERA and 60 plus innings. Erlin, 2.82, exactly where he was at the trade deadline, so a very nice pickup for us there. Really happy with Erlin. If you don't already have him while you're playing franchise, he's actually a really good player to pick up. Minter, 4.3 ERA, not the best, but you know we can deal with it because we got other guys performing, so that's okay. I don't think there's anyone else on that in the relief pitching, but here for the closers, Luke Jackson, 4.2 ERA, so I'd like that to be a little bit lower as well, and Alvarado, 4 ERA, only 5 blown saves. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to think about that. Maybe he just gave up some runs without blowing the saves. He is kind of trending down, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. Maybe we put Castillo in the closing role? Not really sure, but not terrible. Definitely not the type of ERA you want for your closer, though. Darno, 244, 4 homers. Didn't do too bad in the backup role. Narvaez, of course, we know had a crazy good season for him, at least power-wise. What was his fielding percentage? 997. He made 5 errors. So really quickly, just kind of want to see what Zunino did. So Zunino hit 22 homers. He's kind of trending down. Hit 234, and he had a worse fielding percentage, although he made the same amount of. I don't know. I think we got a little bit of a steal with that trade. Anyway, going back here, Luke Voit, 267, 26 homers, did pretty good. Brandon Lowe, 296, 23 homers, 85 RBIs, solid year for him. Joey Wendell, 284. All these second basemen were kind of really performing. Robertson struggled a little bit in the second half, but still not a terrible year for Robertson. I think he was in a platoon role? I can't remember. Yeah. Diaz was the DH. Okay. Robertson was platooning with Camargo. Camargo, not the type of year I was expecting. So while we got a better year for Narvaez, we got a worse year than what we were expecting from Camargo, though he is still, I think, a good guy to have on the team, at the very least versus lefties and for his defense. 91 clutch. That's really good. Anyway, so he hit 233, 16 homers, 56 RBIs. You know, I'd like that average to go up, but we'll see how he continues to perform. Yandy Diaz, 272 with 20 bombs, 83 RBIs. A very nice year for him. Adames, hopefully he continues to improve. His potential is going down a little bit. Overall, still going up. I'm more concerned about him offensively. So we'll see how he does moving forward. We might have to find someone else if he doesn't really perform. And then we have Wander Samuel Franco here, who actually doesn't really look much worse than Adames. So maybe if Adames doesn't perform, the guy that steps in is already in the organization. I cannot move him to AA right now. Anyway, Adames, 249, 8 homers, 42 RBIs. Pham with a solid year, 20 homers, 285 average. Garcia, 257, 18 homers, 70 RBIs. Dwight Smith Jr. Oh boy. No, I made the wrong choice. Rickard did not do well. Only 30 at-bats, but still did not do well at all. Smith was hitting, I think, in 70-something at-bats, right? Yeah, 263. Should have kept him. Should have paid attention there. Forgot to do that. So that's on my... That's my bad. Austin Meadows, 335 homers. I think he's the MVP of the team, quite honestly. Probably, unless you go with a reliever like Trevino, who was only there for half a year. But still, very good year for Meadows here. Excited to have him on the team. So yeah, not a bad year all around. We did better than I expected. Not to say that I didn't expect the Rays to do well, but we did make some changes here. Only had a $50 million budget, so that was definitely something I was worried about. But I think it was a pretty successful first time at this Moneyball challenge, in parentheses, thing. And yeah, I'm excited to see how we do in the playoffs. The next video are going to be the playoffs because I feel like I'm kind of dragging this out a little bit. I don't want to make the video super long. in case we do, move forward past the wild card game. But if we don't, we'll jump right into the offseason in the next video, and we'll kind of just go from there. So again, thank you guys so much for checking this one out. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded. I do plan to upload a little more frequently from here on out, so hopefully I can stick to that. If you guys have any ideas for different types of franchises or rebuilds that you might want to see if you're watching, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I actually started to make a list of different ones that I might want to look into doing in the future. So I'll if somebody gives a suggestion, I'll add it to the list, and we'll look to do it moving forward. But yeah, also one more thing. I think I probably, if I remember, put this in the upper hand corner in the beginning of the video as well. The roster that I'm using is, I think it's the full minors draft update. I forget exactly what it's called, but I'll put it in the description below as well. I think it's from June 7th. I literally can't remember if I already said this. If I did, I apologize. But yeah, it's not the most recent one, but it's the one that I feel most comfortable with. I feel like I did say this, so I'm just gonna leave it there, but I will put it in the description below in case I did say it. I am currently looking for a more updated one, or a more recent roster that is has accurate ratings and all of that stuff. So if I find one, I'll be using that moving in any different franchises moving forward. But yeah, we're gonna end the video here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you're all doing well. Again, I'll see you guys in the next video.